Ready to unlock your notary potential and boost your income? It's time to move beyond basic notarizations. In Notary, Niche Navigator by Derek Spruill, learn the most profitable specialized services. Learn to master high-demand areas like loan signings, international apostilles, and I-9 employment verifications. This essential guide offers new ideas to help you become the go-to expert in your field. Grab your copy of Notary, Niche Navigator by Derek Spruill today and start building your empire.
Welcome to Notary Knowledge. Today we are looking at an office that carries a $10,000 bounty on its head.
Oh, yeah. It is definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, it really isn't.
Yeah.
We are talking about an everyday citizen who has the power to single-handedly validate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal.
Right.
Someone who can legally solemnize your wedding and who can literally land in jail for 30 days just for accidentally using the wrong color ink pad.
It is a remarkable level of authority and peril, honestly.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because if you're listening to this, chances are you have interacted with the notary public at some point. I mean, we all have.
Oh, absolutely.
You sit in a bank lobby or, a car dealership, and someone pulls a rubber stamp out of this messy desk drawer, presses it onto a piece of paper, and suddenly your car title is official.
Yeah, and it is so easy to dismiss that interaction as just mindless bureaucracy.
Exactly. But looking through this stack of sources for our exploration today, the Tennessee Code annotated statutes, the administrative rules, and these really dense county-level handbooks, I realized how incredibly wrong that perception is.
You're definitely not alone in that. I mean, most people view the notary as an administrative hurdle, just a rubber stamp.
Right.
But when you actually read the volunteer state statutes governing Tennessee notaries public, you realize you're looking at a centuries-old office of public trust.
Yeah.
You are looking at the human firewall against fraud.
The human firewall. Man, I love that phrasing. But before we really get into the weeds of these Tennessee laws today, I want to quickly remind everyone tuning in to check out the Notary Knowledge books by Derek Spruill.
Oh, those are absolute must-reads.
They really are. And be sure to visit the Notary Knowledge website as well. You can find all sorts of resources there, including our video podcast, No Notary, and those great little 90-second clips, the 90 seconds of notary.
Highly recommend checking those out. They are packed with great tips.
Absolutely. Okay, so our mission today is to completely deconstruct the mechanics that govern this role in Tennessee.
Right.
We are going to explore the rigorous, almost obsessive physical design of that seal.
It really is obsessive.
It is. And we're going to dive into the jurisdictional rules, which are honestly full of traps for the unwary. Plus, we'll look at the recent leap into digital cryptography.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah, and we're also going to map out the surprising legal landmines that can utterly ruin a well-meaning notary's life.
And setting the stage here is crucial, I think. We aren't just reciting a fee schedule or listing administrative trivia today.
Right, yeah.
We are exploring how a society manufactures, regulates, and preserves trust. I mean, think about it.
Okay.
Without the notary, our entire system of property rights, sworn affidavits, and legal identity essentially grinds to a halt.
Wow, yeah.
If you can't prove that the signature on a deed actually belongs to the person selling the house, the whole concept of real estate just collapses.
Which means the person verifying that signature needs to be thoroughly vetted. You don't just, log onto a state website, click a few boxes, pay a fee, and get a stamp in the mail.
Not even close. The process to become a notary in Tennessee is incredibly stringent, and what's most fascinating is how deeply localized it is.
That was the very first thing that jumped out at me, because when I think of a state official, I assume the state government in Nashville handles everything.
Sure, that makes sense.
But you don't actually start with the state at all, do you?
You don't. Under the Tennessee Code, annotated specifically Section 8-16101, the baseline qualifications seem deceptively simple.
Okay.
You need to be at least 18 years old and a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident. And you must reside or have your principal place of business in the county where you are applying.
Right. Pretty standard stuff so far.
But the mechanism of how you get the job is where the localized power really comes in. You aren't just hired, you are elected.
Elected by the county legislative body. When I read that, it blew my mind. I mean, I'm picturing a local political campaign with yard signs and everything.
It's not quite shaking hands and kissing babies, but it is a formal legislative act. You submit your application to your local county clerk.
Okay.
Then The county commission, like the elected representatives who manage the county's budget and zoning laws, they have to literally hold a vote to elect you as a notary during their public session.
Stop. Wait, so if I apply in my county, I'm sitting in a courthouse on a Tuesday night.
Yep.
The commission is debating, like, pothole repairs and the school budget, and then someone says, next item on the docket, the election of this citizen to the office of notary public.
That is exactly how the mechanics work. Your name goes on the public record. They vote.
That is wild.
And only after the local commission officially elects you does the county clerk forward your certification up to the Secretary of State in Nashville.
Got it.
Then, and only then, are you officially commissioned by the governor of Tennessee.
See, that makes it feel so much heavier. It's not just a side hustle, it's an actual public office. Which I guess explains why the background check isn't just looking to see if you have unpaid parking tickets.
Oh, the disqualifications are incredibly severe. Because you are holding an office of trust, the state requires immaculate financial and legal standing.
Right.
The statute disqualifies anyone who has ever been convicted of offering or giving a bribe, or of larceny, or any other offense declared infamous by law.
Infamous by law.
Yeah.
That phrasing sounds like it was written by someone wearing a powdered wig in the 1800s.
It really does.
What does that actually mean for a modern applicant?
It's a legacy term, but it essentially covers felony convictions that involve moral turpitude or dishonesty.
Okay.
If society cannot trust your basic moral character, you cannot be the designated arbiter of trust for legal documents, period.
Makes total sense.
But the financial vetting is arguably even stricter. You are disqualified if you have unpaid judgments against you for money received in an official capacity that is due to the state or county.
So if you owe the government money from a previous role, you're out.
Correct. The sources use the phrase defaulter to the Treasury. They do not want anyone with questionable financial leverage holding an office where they could be bribed to validate a fraudulent multi-million-dollar transaction.
And it gets deeper, too. I noticed there's a sworn statement you have to sign under penalty of perjury.
Yes.
You've never been removed from the office of notary public before, never had a commission revoked, and you've never been found by a court to have engaged in the unauthorized practice of law.
I'm really glad you brought up the unauthorized practice of law because that is a massive temptation for notaries.
How so? If I'm just stamping a piece of paper, how am I practicing law?
Well, put yourself in the shoes of a notary at a real estate closing or, say, in a estate planning meeting.
Okay.
Someone slides a dense 50-page trust document across the table to an elderly client. The client looks at the notary and says, "What does this paragraph mean? Should I sign this?"
And human nature is to want to help, to explain it to them.
Exactly. But if the notary is not a licensed attorney, explaining the legal ramifications of a document is a crime. It's the unauthorized practice of law.
Wow.
The state is terrified of well-meaning citizens dispensing bad legal advice while wielding state authority, so they force you to swear under oath that you have no history of crossing that very strict boundary.
But out of all the disqualifications, there was one that completely stopped me in my tracks. I think I had to read it 3 times.
Amigas.
You cannot be a notary in Tennessee if you are a member of Congress, or if you are a soldier, sailor, Marine, or airman in the regular armed forces of the United States.
Yeah, it's a fascinating restriction, isn't it?
It is wild. I mean, if I'm thinking about people who represent discipline and trust, an active duty military officer seems like a perfect candidate. Why on earth would they be explicitly banned from stamping a car title?
It has nothing to do with their character and everything to do with a very old, very fundamental constitutional principle regarding dual offices of trust and profit.
Okay.
It's deeply rooted in the separation of powers.
Walk me through that. What is the actual conflict?
Think back to the framing of state constitutions. A notary public is an officer of the sovereign state of Tennessee.
Right.
When you are an active duty military officer or a federal congressman, your primary allegiance, your chain of command, and your official duties are entirely bound to the federal government in Washington, D.C.
Okay, I'm with you.
Historically, state governments were incredibly wary of federal overreach. They did not want federal military personnel or federal politicians holding concurrent state-level civil authority.
That makes sense.
Imagine a scenario in the 1800s where a federal army officer also held the legal power to validate or reject local property deeds and civil contracts within a Tennessee county.
Oh, wow. That would be a massive conflict of interest. It would totally blur the lines between federal military power and state civil rights.
Precisely. It's an artifact of maintaining strict boundaries. If you serve the federal government in those specific capacities, you cannot simultaneously hold an office of trust for the state of Tennessee. You just have to pick one master.
That just elevates the whole concept for me. It reminds you that this isn't some entry-level corporate job. It's a serious civic duty. And to take on that duty, you have to put some serious money on the line.
You do.
The sources say every single notary must post a $10,000 surety bond before they can even take their oath.
That is a non-negotiable statutory requirement. Section 816-104 mandates it. But I really want to pause here because this is the single most misunderstood concept in the entire notary world.
The bond.
Yes. When people hear the word bond or insurance, they naturally assume it protects them. Like, if you buy car insurance, it protects you if you crash your car.
Right.
So people think the $10,000 notary bond protects the notary if they make a mistake.
Which seems totally logical. I mean, you're the one paying for it.
It is the exact opposite. The surety bond does absolutely nothing to protect the notary. Zero.
Wait, really? Then who is it for?
It protects the public from the notary.
Oh, okay. Explain how that works in practice. Give me a hypothetical scenario.
Let's say you are a notary. A man comes to you with a deed, claiming he is selling a piece of property.
Okay.
He hands you an ID. You glance at it, you don't really pay attention, you stamp the deed, and he sells the property for $100,000.
Yikes. I see where this is going.
Turns out the ID was completely fake. He was a fraudster. The real owner of the property just lost their land because of your negligence.
Because my stamp gave the fraudulent document legal validity.
Exactly. So the real owner sues you, the notary, for failing your duty to properly verify identity. But what if you're broke? What if you don't have $100,000?
Right.
The injured party is out of luck. That is why the state mandates the $10,000 bond. It ensures that there is a guaranteed minimum pool of money, $10,000, sitting there, ready to compensate any citizen who is harmed by a notary's negligence or deliberate misconduct.
So the surety company pays the victim the 10 grand.
Yeah.
But what happens to the notary? Does the surety company just write it off as a loss?
Oh, absolutely not. The surety company will turn right around and sue the notary to recover every single penny of that $10,000 plus their legal fees.
So it's basically a financial bounty on your own head. You were paying a company for the privilege of them paying out your victims and then hunting you down to collect the debt.
That is a very visceral way to put it, but mechanically, yeah, you're right. The bond is a guarantee to the public, not a shield for the notary. You are entirely on the hook.
Which makes some of the county's specific quirks so fascinating. The sources point out that normally you just go to a commercial insurance broker and buy this bond for, what, 50 or 100 bucks?
Yes, a commercial corporate surety is the standard route today.
But then you look at Roane County. The Roane County Handbook outlines a provision where, instead of buying a commercial bond, an applicant can use what they call personal sureties.
It's a brilliant glimpse into historical hyper-local governance.
It really is.
Yeah.
If I'm understanding this right, in Roane County, I don't need a corporate insurance policy at all. I can literally just find two people who live in the county, and they sign a legal agreement saying they will stand good for $10,000 each on my behalf.
That is functionally correct. Two of your neighbors are legally pledging their own personal assets, their homes, their savings, as a guarantee to the county that you will not commit fraud.
Imagine knocking on your neighbor's door. Hey, Bob, can I borrow a cup of sugar? And also, can you pledge 10 grand against your house in case I mess up a real estate closing? That is an insane level of community trust.
It speaks volumes about the original intent of the office. Before massive corporate insurance existed, your reputation and the backing of your immediate community were your bond.
Wow.
If two established property owners in Roane County were willing to risk their livelihoods on your integrity, the state accepted that as sufficient protection for the public. It's rare today, but the fact that the mechanism still exists is a testament to how decentralized this process remains.
And that decentralization shows up in the money, too. The fees to become a notary. I notice they kind of bounce around depending on where you live.
They do, and it's a great lesson in administrative math. The state statutes lay out a standard baseline. The law says the application fee is $12.
Okay.
And they dictate exactly how that pie is sliced. $7 is retained by the local county clerk for the effort of processing the local election, and $5 is sent to the Secretary of State to actually print and issue the commission.
Very clean. Very precise. But then I looked at the Shelby County Handbook. Down in Memphis, they charge $16, and Roane County charges $14.
Yeah.
If the state law says $12, how are counties just making up their own prices?
Well, because the state law dictates the minimum statutory split, but county legislative bodies have the authority to tack on localized administrative processing fees.
Ah, I see.
The Secretary of State always gets their $5 cut. But Shelby County's commission essentially decided, our overhead is higher. Processing these applications takes more of our clerk's time, so we are keeping $11 instead of $7.
It's bureaucracy in its purest, most localized form.
Exactly. So you pay the local fee, the commission elects you, the governor signs the certificate, you secure your $10,000 bond, whether through an insurance company or your very generous neighbor Bob, and then you raise your right hand.
Right.
You take a sworn oath to support the constitutions of Tennessee and the United States and to discharge your duties without favor or partiality.
And then finally, the county clerk hands over your commission. You are a notary public for the state of Tennessee, and that term lasts for exactly 4 years.
4 years. And the very next step is to acquire the most iconic tool of your new trade, the official seal.
The rubber stamp. Because this is where the rules transition from abstract bureaucracy into obsessively rigid physical requirements.
Oh, completely.
I was reading Section 816.114, which dictates exactly what this stamp must look like. And let me tell you, there is zero room for artistic expression here.
None. The physical seal is strictly prescribed by the Secretary of State to preserve the visual integrity of public records across all 95 counties.
Okay, let's break down the geometry. The statute demands that the physical stamp must be strictly circular. The sources note that while the law doesn't specify a precise millimeter diameter, standard commercial manufacturers uniformly make them between 1 5/8 inches and 2 inches wide.
Right, because anything smaller renders the required text illegible, and anything larger won't fit neatly into the margins of standard legal documents.
And the text layout is incredibly rigid. You have to have your exact commission name printed along the top arc of the circle. And by exact, they mean exact. Like, if your commission says Robert James Smith, you cannot have a stamp that says Bob Smith.
Uniformity of identity is paramount. We'll touch on that more later, but yes, the name must be a perfect match.
Then, along the bottom arc, it must display the county of your election. And dead in the center, reading horizontally, it has to say either State of Tennessee Notary Public or Tennessee Notary Public.
And that central text was actually the subject of a very recent administrative cleanup. If you look at the Department of State's amendments from December 2023, they specifically targeted this one rule.
Oh, right. They deleted paragraph 2. I was wondering about that. What was actually in paragraph 2?
It was a fascinating piece of legacy language. For decades, the rules allowed certain older notaries to use a stamp that said Notary Public at Large in the center rather than a specific county.
Okay.
This was a holdover from laws before 2004 when Tennessee actually had different tiers or classes of notaries.
So an at-large notary was like a super notary?
Functionally, it just meant their authority wasn't bound in the same way, but the legislature eventually flattened the system so every notary has statewide authority anyway. But here's the kicker. Since all Tennessee commissions are only valid for 4 years, the very last person to hold a valid at-large commission saw it expire back in 2008.
Wait, so the last stamp of that kind expired in 2008, but they didn't officially delete the rule from the administrative code until December of 2023.
Welcome to the glacial speed of administrative law. It sat on the books as a ghost rule for 15 years, but by deleting it, the state ensured that moving forward there is absolute uniform compliance. Every single physical traditional stamp in Tennessee today must follow that exact circular design.
Okay, but the geometry and the text are just the appetizer. My absolute favorite part of the seal requirements is the ink rule. It reads like a riddle. The statute mandates that the physical stamp must be imprinted in, and I'm quoting this directly, any color other than black or yellow.
It is, without a doubt, one of the most brilliantly simple analog anti-fraud mechanisms ever written into law.
See, when I first read it, I was completely baffled. Why on earth would you ban black ink? Black is the most professional standard ink color in human history. Every legal contract is printed in black. Every pen I own is black. Why ban the most normal color?
Because its normality is exactly the problem. To understand this, you have to think about the life cycle of a modern legal document.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's take a commercial mortgage. It's printed, it's signed, the notary applies their seal. But that original piece of paper doesn't just sit on a desk. It gets photocopied, it gets scanned, it gets emailed to an underwriter in New York and a register of deeds in Nashville.
Right, it gets duplicated 100 times.
Exactly. Now, Put yourself in the shoes of a county clerk who receives a physical piece of paper in the mail. They need to look at that document and instantly know with absolute certainty whether they are holding the original wet ink document or just a really high-quality photocopy.
And if the notary used a black ink stamp?
If the stamp is black and someone makes a standard black and white photocopy of the document, the copy looks absolutely identical to the original. There is no visual distinction.
Wow.
A fraudster could easily forge a signature on a copy, photocopy a black notary stamp onto it, and pass the whole thing off as a legitimate original instrument.
That is so smart. By legally banning black ink, the state forces the creation of a low-tech visual watermark. If the receiving clerk looks at the page and sees a bright blue or green stamp, their brain instantly registers, okay, this is the wet ink original. If they see a black stamp, they instantly know this is a reproduction, reject it.
Precisely. It is an instant, unhackable visual cue.
Okay, the ban on black ink makes total sense now. But why ban yellow? A yellow stamp would definitely stand out from black text.
Yellow is banned for archival and technological reasons. It comes down to how digital scanners and microfilm cameras process light.
Wait, microfilm, like the little spools they use in old spy movies?
Yes, exactly. Many county court systems and registers of deeds still rely heavily on microfilm for long-term archival storage because it lasts for centuries without degrading.
That's amazing.
But whether you are using an old microfilm camera or a brand new digital scanner, they both operate on contrast. Yellow ink is incredibly light and highly reflective. It doesn't absorb light the same way darker colors do.
So when the bright light of the scanner hits it,
the yellow ink completely washes out. It blends right into the white background of the paper. It essentially becomes invisible.
Oh, no.
And if a document is scanned into the public record, but the notary's seal vanishes in the scan, that document is legally defective. The public record shows an unnotarized document.
Wow. So no black because it copies too perfectly, and no yellow because it refuses to copy at all.
Exactly. You need a color dark enough to scan, but distinct enough from black to prove it's an original, which is why dark blue ink has become the de facto standard for notaries in Tennessee, though, as the sources point out, dark purple, green, and red are also perfectly compliant.
Which brings up a tragic casualty of modern technology, the classic embosser. You know what I'm talking about. The heavy metal crimper usually sits on a lawyer's desk, and you squeeze it, and it leaves a raised, textured seal physically pressed into the paper.
Oh, yeah.
It looks so official. It feels like real power.
It is incredibly dramatic, and historically, for over a century, the raised metal embosser was the gold standard for notarization.
But the sources say it's relegated. Under current law, you can't use it as your primary seal anymore.
You cannot, and the logic is identical to the ban on yellow ink. You cannot scan texture.
Because the scanner only sees color and light.
Right, a digital scanner creates a two-dimensional image. An embossed seal is just raised white paper sitting on flat white paper. There is no color contrast.
Yeah.
When you feed an embossed document through a modern scanner, the resulting PDF just looks like a blank white space where the seal should be.
The ultimate anticlimax.
Exactly. So while you can still legally own an embosser, and you can crimp the paper to make it look fancy and give the client that dramatic tactile experience, it is purely decorative now. It cannot legally replace the mandatory colored ink stamp.
You know, we are going to take a very quick commercial break, but when we come back, I am going to throw a massive wrench into this perfect ink colors system.
Yeah.
You won't want to miss this.
Stick around.
And we are back. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about how strict the ink colors are. Let's go back to the real world for a second.
Okay.
Imagine a multi-million-dollar commercial real estate closing. We're talking 50 pages of dense legalese. Signatures everywhere. Millions of dollars moving through wire transfers. The notary is exhausted. They reach into their bag, grab the wrong ink pad, and accidentally stamp the final crucial deed with black ink.
It happens. Humans make mistakes.
Does the whole deal collapse? Is this multi-million-dollar transaction completely voided just because of the chemical composition of the ink on the rubber stamp?
That is a fantastic question, and what's fascinating here is how the law actually anticipates human fallibility.
Because if a technicality like that destroys a business deal, people would riot.
Exactly. The legislature recognized that voiding a massive legitimate transaction over an ink pad color would be catastrophic and deeply unjust. It would basically weaponize the rule.
Right.
So built right into the very same statute that bans black ink is a safe harbor provision.
A safe harbor. What does it actually do?
It explicitly immunizes the document. The statute states that a legal acknowledgement cannot be declared defective, invalid, or unenforceable solely because the notary used the wrong ink color.
Oh, wow.
It even covers the embosser. If a notary accidentally uses an embosser without an ink stamp, the document survives.
So the legal contract remains valid.
Yes. Furthermore, the safe harbor shields the notary from civil liability or criminal prosecution for that specific formatting error.
That is such a delicate needle to thread. They mandate this strict rule to prevent fraud, but they simultaneously build a fail-safe into the code, so a simple, honest technical glitch doesn't nuke the local economy.
It's practical lawmaking. It establishes the standard, gives receiving agencies the right to complain, but prevents a clerical error from destroying substantive legal rights.
All right, so we have our properly vetted notary. They are armed with their dark blue, strictly circular, non-embossed stamp. They are ready to work. Let's move to the actual logistics of doing the job, because this is where geographic mechanics and identity rules create some incredibly dangerous traps.
It's arguably the most complex part of a notary's daily life.
Let's start with geography. We established that the notary is elected and commissioned at the county level. The physical rubber stamp literally has their county of election permanently engraved into the rubber. But what is their actual jurisdiction? Where can they legally work?
That is the dual structure of their authority. While their origin is local, their operational jurisdiction is statewide. Under Section 816.112, a notary is granted full authority to perform notarial acts in all 95 counties of Tennessee.
Okay, so if I am commissioned in Knox County, up in Knoxville, I don't lose my superpowers just because I drive a couple hours west into Davidson County, which is Nashville.
Correct. Your authority travels with you across county lines. You don't have to register your commission with the Davidson County clerk before you can stamp a document there.
But the sources say this exact geographic freedom is what leads to the venue trap. And I love this concept. Explain what a venue actually is on a legal document.
When you look at a notarial certificate, which is the block of text the notary actually signs, it almost always begins with a heading that looks like this: State of Tennessee, County of War, followed by a blank line.
Okay.
That heading is called the venue.
And what goes in that blank line?
The venue designates the exact physical geographic location where the act of notarization is taking place at that specific moment in time.
So it's not where the notary lives. It's not where the client's business is headquartered. It's not where the contract was originally drafted by the lawyers.
No, it is literally where your feet are planted when you look the client in the eye and watch them put pen to paper. It is a strict record of physical location.
And here's the trap. Taking my earlier example, I am a notary commissioned in Knox County. My physical rubber stamp proudly says Knox County on the bottom arc. I get in my car, I drive to a hospital in Davidson County to notarize an emergency power of attorney.
Right.
I sit by the bed, I watch the person sign, I pull out my stamp, it says Knox.
Yeah.
Naturally, my brain says I should write Knox County in the venue block so everything matches.
And the moment you write Knox County, you have officially breached your duty and falsified a legal certificate.
Falsified, that's a really strong word.
Because the venue must reflect reality. If you are standing in a hospital in Davidson County, the venue must be State of Tennessee, County of Davidson.
But then I'm stamping it with a seal that says Knox County. The document has 2 different counties on it. Won't that get rejected?
Not if the receiving clerk knows the law. The mismatch is actually the legally correct format.
I was trying to think of an analogy for this, and it honestly reminds me of a U.S. passport.
How? How so?
When you look at my passport, it tells you exactly where I originate from. It says I am a citizen of the United States. That is my origin, just like the notary seal says Knox County.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But when I travel to France, the customs agent stamps a venue into my passport that says Paris. The origin is the U.S., but the venue where my feet are currently planted is Paris.
That is an exceptionally good analogy. The seal is your administrative origin. The venue is your current geographic reality. They serve 2 totally different functions.
Right.
The venue trap catches so many people because we naturally want documents to look uniform. But pre-printing your home county into the venue block when you are traveling is a fast way to get a document rejected in court, because a lawyer can easily prove you weren't physically in Knox County that day.
The geography rules get even more intense when we talk about a notary actually moving their physical address. What happens if our Knox County notary decides they love Nashville so much they pack up their house and permanently move to Davidson County?
This is governed by Section 816.109, which covers interstate relocation, so moving within the borders of Tennessee, It's a relatively straightforward process, but it requires deliberate paperwork.
Okay.
The notary cannot just change their address on their driver's license and forget about it. They must formally notify the county clerk.
Wait, which clerk? The one in Knox where they used to live, or the one in Davidson where they live now?
The clerk of their original county of election. They have to submit a formal change of address form to Knox County, and they must pay a $7 processing fee.
And I'm guessing that $7 is split up just like the application fee we talked about earlier.
Exactly. The administrative math holds steady. The local Knox County clerk retains $5 for updating their local ledger, and they forward $2 to the Secretary of State in Nashville to update the master state database.
Okay, so they pay the fee, they update the address. But here is the question. Do they get a new rubber stamp? I mean, they live in Davidson County now. Should their stamp say Davidson?
No. And this is highly counterintuitive for many notaries. You do not obtain a new commission, and you do not buy a new seal.
Really? That feels wrong.
I know, but yes. You must continue to use your original Knox County seal for the remainder of your 4-year term, even while sleeping in a house in Davidson County.
Wow.
The state prioritizes the continuity of the original 4-year commission over your current mailing address. You only switch to a Davidson County seal when your current term expires, and you have to go through the entire election application process again in your new home county.
So the paper trail always traces back to the geographic origin of the commission,
Yeah.
as long as you stay within the state lines.
Correct.
But what if you don't? What if I live in Clarksville, Tennessee, right on the border, and I buy a house 10 miles north in Kentucky? I'm still commuting into Tennessee every day for work.
That changes everything. That triggers immediate disqualification under the statute.
Immediate, like right away.
Yes. If you move your permanent residence and your principal place of business outside the borders of Tennessee, you are no longer a Tennessee notary. The moment you establish residency in Kentucky, your commission is void.
Ouch.
You must immediately surrender your commission certificate and physically hand over your rubber stamp to your original county clerk's office.
Mandatory surrender of the seal. They actually take your tools.
They absolutely take your tools, and the consequences for ignoring this rule are severe.
Just say I don't turn it in.
Yeah.
I think, hey, I still have 3 years left on my term. I work in Tennessee every day. Who's going to know?
Yeah.
And I just keep notarizing documents.
If you move out of state and continue to perform Tennessee notarizations, you are committing a Class C misdemeanor.
A criminal offense.
Okay.
Literally for stamping a piece of paper.
Yes. Punishable by a $50 fine and up to 30 days in the county jail.
30 days in jail.
The state of Tennessee does not take kindly to non-residents exercising sovereign state civil authority without a legal footing in the state. If you aren't subject to the state's jurisdiction as a resident or business owner, you simply cannot hold an office of trust.
Okay, so we've covered the strict rules for changing your geographic address, but the sources highlight rules that are just as strict, if not stricter, for changing your actual identity.
Oh, yes.
People get married. People get divorced. Surnames change all the time. Can a notary who just got married just start signing documents with their new legal name?
Absolutely not. Tennessee law requires strict identity uniformity. The core function of a notary is to provide verifiable identity. If the notary's own identity is fluid or inconsistent, the entire system breaks down. You cannot simply adopt a new name in your official capacity without undergoing a formal administrative modification.
Which means more paperwork.
Yeah.
And more fees.
A lot more paperwork. Let's walk through it. Say a notary named Jane Doe gets married and changes her legal surname to Smith. To legally amend her commission to Jane Smith, she must go back to her original county clerk.
Okay.
She must physically surrender her original Jane Doe commission certificate. She must present formal, certified legal documentation like a certified marriage certificate or a judge's court order if it was a legal name change.
And what about that $10,000 bond we talked about? The bond is tied to the name Jane Doe.
Excellent point. The surety company insured Jane Doe, not Jane Smith. So the notary must contact her insurance agent, explain the name change, and obtain what is called a bond rider.
A rider. What is that?
It's a legal amendment to the insurance policy that bridges the old name to the new name, maintaining the continuous $10,000 coverage. She has to submit that bond rider to the county clerk as well.
And pay the fee, of course.
Yeah.
Which, again, the sources show is all over the map. The statute says a standard name change is $7, but Sevier County charges a localized fee of $33 just to process the name change.
It's the price of local administration. Once all that paperwork, the bond rider, and the fees are submitted, the Secretary of State will eventually issue an amended commission certificate under the new name Jane Smith. and then she can finally go buy a new rubber stamp.
But here is the critical part that the sources emphasize, and I really want to make sure I understand this perfectly. What happens in the gap?
Ah, the gap. The gap is the danger zone.
Right. The time between getting married on a Saturday, filing the paperwork on a Tuesday, and waiting 3 weeks for the new amended certificate and the new rubber stamp to arrive in the mail. Does she have to suspend operations? Is she out of work for 3 weeks?
She does not have to suspend operations, but she has to follow the strict identity uniformity rule. During that gap, she is strictly prohibited from performing any official acts under her new married name.
Even though it is legally her name now.
Because she doesn't have the amended state certificate to prove it, and she doesn't have a physical seal engraved with the new name.
Makes sense.
If she chooses to continue working during that gap, she may legally do so, but she must continue to perform notarizations using her former name.
She has to pretend she isn't married yet, professionally speaking.
Functionally, yes. She must sign all certificates using the exact signature of her maiden name, Jane Doe, because that is the name engraved on her current physical seal.
You cannot mix and match.
Never! You cannot sign with your new married signature, Jane Smith, but then stamp the paper with a seal that says Jane Doe.
What happens if you do? Let's say she forgets.
Mixing names destroys the verifiability of the act. It renders the notarization legally defective. A receiving agency looks at it and sees two different people. Jane Smith signed it, Jane Doe stamped it. They will reject it immediately. The signature must always perfectly match the rubber stamp.
It all comes back to fraud prevention. The physical paper trail just has to be flawless. But, everything we have talked about so far, blue ink, rubber stamps, physical signatures, driving across county lines, it all feels incredibly analog. It feels like the 19th century.
It is the pinnacle of analog security, really.
But that brings us to the digital leap, because Tennessee has not ignored the 21st century. Under the Online Notary Public Act, the state has brought the centuries-old office into the digital age.
Yes, remote online notarization.
Exactly, RON. And the rules we just spent 30 minutes discussing, a lot of them get completely thrown out the window.
They have to be. When you remove physical paper and wet ink from the equation, you lose all those analog anti-fraud mechanisms.
Right. You can't rely on banning black ink to spot a photocopy if the document only exists as a PDF on a cloud server. There is no original physical paper to compare it to.
Exactly. The entire concept of a copy changes. So the state had to construct a completely new matrix of rules governed by Rule 1360.0703.04.
And right away, the physical geometry rules we obsessed over earlier are completely abandoned.
Yes. For a physical stamp, we noted it must be strictly circular, no exceptions. But for an electronic seal applied to a digital document, the state allows it to be circular, square, or rectangular.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Why the discrepancy? The state was so obsessive about physical circles. Why let digital stamps be squares? It feels really inconsistent.
It's not inconsistent, actually. It's a pragmatic adaptation to software engineering.
How so?
Think about how digital documents are rendered on a computer screen. Text boxes, image placeholders, signature fields, they are all naturally coded as rectangular bounding boxes.
Okay, yeah.
When a digital system applies cryptographic verification to a specific area of a document, it is much easier for the software to map and lock down a set of rectangular coordinates.
Ah, because screens are made of square pixels.
Precisely. Forcing a perfectly circular graphic into a rigid digital framework often causes rendering issues or graphic clipping. So the law adapted to the medium. They care less about the shape and more about the data embedded within it.
Which brings up the text on the digital seal. It's different, too. Unlike the physical stamp, the electronic seal must graphically display the notary's commission expiration date.
Correct. On a physical paper document, the notary usually writes their expiration date by hand on a blank line right next to the seal. But in a digital environment, handwriting isn't an option.
Right.
By embedding the expiration date directly into the graphical image of the electronic seal, it ensures that the expiration data is permanently locked into the document at the exact moment of signing.
And that locking mechanism is the core of digital security. It's what replaces the blue ink. The sources call it PKI cryptography, using an X.509 compliant provider.
Yes, public key infrastructure. It is mathematical trust.
Okay, you said X.509, and I mean, I know I'm a smart person, but you just completely lost me. Explain that to me like I'm 5 years old. Yeah. What is X.509, and how does PKI actually secure a PDF?
Let's break it down. Imagine an X.509 certificate as a highly secure digital ID card. But instead of being issued by the DMV, it's issued by an international cybersecurity standards body. It proves mathematically that the digital tools you're using belong exclusively to you.
Okay, I have my digital ID card. Now what do I do with it?
Now we use PKI public key infrastructure. Imagine you have two digital keys. One is private, and you keep it secretly hidden on your computer.
Like a password.
Sort of, yes. And the other key is public, and you give a copy of it to anyone who wants to read your documents.
Private key for me, public key for the world. Got it.
When you perform an online notarization, the software uses your private key to run a complex mathematical algorithm over the entire PDF document, every letter, every pixel, every comma. It creates a unique mathematical summary of that document called a hash. Then it locks that hash using your private key. That locked hash is your digital signature.
Okay, so the document is mathematically sealed. What happens if someone tries to tamper with it later? Like, what if a fraudster gets the PDF and tries to change the mortgage amount from $100,000 to $200,000?
The moment they change even a single pixel, even adding a space between two words, the underlying mathematics of the document change entirely.
And the lock breaks.
Exactly. When someone else uses your public key to check the document, the math won't add up anymore. The software will instantly flash a massive red warning saying, "Document tampered with, signature invalid."
Wow.
It provides absolute, verifiable tamper evidence that goes far beyond just looking at the color of ink.
That is infinitely more secure. It's essentially foolproof as long as you protect your private key.
Yes. But the document security is really only half the battle. The other half is identity verification.
Right. In the physical world, verifying identity is simple. Someone sits across from me, they hand me their Tennessee driver's license. I look at the plastic card, I check the hologram, I look at the photo, I look at their face. Done.
Right.
How on earth do they verify identity over a webcam when the person could be sitting in their living room 300 miles away?
It is a fascinating, multi-layered electronic verification process that is arguably much harder to fool than a human being.
How does it start?
First, the client holds their physical government ID up to their webcam. But the notary isn't just eyeballing it. The system uses advanced credential analysis software.
Okay.
It scans the ID in real time, checking the microprinting, analyzing the font kerning, reading the barcodes on the back, and verifying the holographic security features against a global database to ensure it isn't a sophisticated counterfeit.
Okay, so the computer proves the piece of plastic is real.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you prove the person sitting in front of the webcam is actually the person on the plastic? Couldn't I just steal my roommate's ID and hold it up?
That is where the second layer comes in. The knowledge-based authentication, or KBA, quiz.
Oh, man. I've had to do one of these for a bank before. It is incredibly stressful.
It is designed to be highly stressful for a fraudster. Here's how it works. The ON software connects to massive data brokers like credit bureaus, public records databases. It pulls data from your 30-year financial and residential history, things that aren't printed on your driver's license.
And it builds a custom quiz.
Yes. It generates 5 multiple-choice questions, and they are obscure. For example, which of the following 4 addresses did you live at in August of 2014?
Oh, wow.
Or which of these banks held your auto loan in 2018? Or what was the make and model of the vehicle registered to you in 2011?
I'm sweating just thinking about trying to remember what car I drove in 2011. And you were on a clock, right?
A very strict clock. State law dictates you must pass this 5-question quiz within 2 minutes. 2 minutes total. And you must score at least 80%, which means you can only miss one single question.
And if you fail?
The software locks you out. The notary is legally barred from proceeding with the online notarization.
That is incredibly robust. I mean, a fraudster who stole a wallet might know your name and address, but they aren't going to know who held your car loan 15 years ago.
Exactly. It proves that the person behind the webcam possesses the deep, historical, lived knowledge of the identity they claim to hold.
And because this is all happening digitally, the record-keeping requirements are entirely different too, aren't they? For traditional physical notarizations, we'll talk about the journal loophole in a minute, but for Ron, there are no loopholes.
None at all. Under the Online Notary Public Act, maintaining a secure electronic journal is always mandatory for every single act, regardless of whether a fee is charged or not.
But it's not just a written journal, is it?
No, it's much more. The most significant requirement is that the online notary must retain a complete audio-video recording of the entire interactive transaction.
They record the webcam feed.
From the very moment the session starts, through the credential analysis, the swearing of the oath, the digital signing, all the way to the end, And both the electronic journal and that video file must be securely stored for a minimum of 5 years.
5 years of raw video storage. That is a massive data retention burden.
It is, but the legal utility is unparalleled.
I bet.
If a will or a deed is challenged in court 4 years later, say a family member alleges that an elderly parent was coerced into signing away their estate, the judge doesn't have to rely on the notary's hazy memory.
Right.
They can pull the video file, press play, and watch the exact moment of signing. They can see the client's demeanor, hear their voice, and observe the entire environment.
It's the ultimate impartial witness.
It truly is.
But just like the physical world, there has to be an end to the commission.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about how if you move out of state, you have to physically drive to the county clerk and hand over your rubber stamp and your metal embosser.
Okay.
How do you surrender a digital seal?
The digital decommissioning process is just as strict and, frankly, a bit more intense.
Really?
Yeah. Under Section 816.114 and the accompanying administrative rules, if an online notary's commission expires and they do not intend to renew it, or if they aren't recommissioned within 30 days, they must systematically destroy their digital tools.
Destroy them.
The law dictates they must permanently destroy the coding, the disk, the software, or the cryptographic password that enables their digital signature.
You literally have to digitally shred your own cryptographic keys.
You have to wipe them from existence so that they can never be compromised, hacked, or used by a bad actor again. It is the digital equivalent of taking a blowtorch and melting down a metal embosser.
Wow. Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today on the volunteer state statutes. We've gone through the strict qualifications, the obsession with physical seal geometry and ink color, the traps of geography and identity, and the highly secure digital frontier of PKI and video retention.
It's a lot to process.
It is. So let's pull this all together and move to the final major area: powers, perils, and profound responsibilities. Because the power a Tennessee notary wields is expansive, but as we've hinted at, the liabilities are absolutely terrifying.
Let's start with the powers. The core authorities are found in Section 8-16.112. The most common power is taking an acknowledgement, which is the legal process of verifying a signature on a document like a deed, a mortgage, or a contract.
Like, I acknowledge I signed this of my own free will.
Exactly. They also have the power to administer oaths and affirmations, which is critical for swearing in witnesses or executing sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury. They can take depositions for legal proceedings.
But there is a brand new power that was added recently that completely surprised me. In 2021, the state legislature passed Public Chapter number 255, and they gave Tennessee notaries the power to solemnize marriages.
It was a very significant expansion of their utility.
I think that is so cool. Imagine putting that on your business card, your LinkedIn profile. I can notarize your commercial real estate mortgage on Friday, and I can officiate your wedding on Saturday.
It's a great perk. They were officially added to the class of officials authorized to officiate weddings, right alongside judges and ordained ministers.
Are there strict rules for how they have to do it? Do they have to wear a robe or anything?
No, there are no additional administrative regulations dictating the style of the ceremony. The notary can conduct the ceremony however the couple wishes.
Nice.
However, they must comply with all standard statutory rules regarding marriage. They must verify that the marriage license issued by the county is valid. They must properly complete their portion of the license, and they are legally responsible for returning it to the county clerk's office within 3 days after the ceremony.
And obviously, they aren't doing all of this for free. They're entitled to charge for their services.
Yes. Under Section 8-21-1201, notaries are permitted to demand and receive what the statute calls reasonable fees for their services.
Which is really interesting wording, because for traditional in-person notarizations, the physical rubber stamp kind, the state doesn't actually set a hard statutory cap.
It does not. The legislature leaves it up to the market. Though practically speaking, market forces and custom usually keep traditional walk-in notary fees quite low, typically in the range of $5 to $15 per signature.
But for remote online notarizations, the state does step in.
Yes. Because RON involves significant technology costs like software subscriptions, KBA quiz fees, video storage, the administrative rules explicitly cap on fees at a maximum of $25 per online notarization act.
Okay, but here's where things get really controversial, at least in my reading of the sources. Charging a fee triggers a very specific legal requirement.
It triggers the journal requirement.
Yes, For traditional notaries, the law says if you charge a fee for your services, you must maintain a record of each notarial act in a well-bound book or a secure electronic journal.
Right.
You have to write down the date, the type of document, the name of the person, how you verified their ID, and the fee collected.
Correct. The Attorney General has clarified that it doesn't strictly have to be a physical paper book. It can be a digital spreadsheet as long as it's chronological and tamper evident, but the record must be maintained.
Okay, but here is my massive issue with this. Listen to the wording. If you charge a fee. Wait, so if I am a traditional notary and my neighbor Bob comes over with a power of attorney and I notarize it for free, just doing a favor for a friend, I don't legally have to record that act in a journal.
Under a strict reading of the statute, you are correct.
That seems like a massive gaping loophole for fraud.
I see why you'd think that, and it raises a profound question about the difference between a statutory minimum requirement and professional survival.
Okay.
You are right that state law does not explicitly criminalize failing to keep a journal for a free traditional notarial act.
That is terrifying. Why would the state leave that open?
It's likely a holdover from an era where neighborly free notarizations were common and less litigious. However, while the statute might not mandate it, every single legal expert, the Secretary of State's training manuals, and basic common sense dictate that a notary should and frankly must record every single act they perform, regardless of whether a fee was charged.
To cover their own back.
Exactly. Imagine you do that free favor for Bob. You don't record it. 5 years later, Bob passes away. His estranged children find the power of attorney, they claim the signature was forged, and they sue you for facilitating fraud.
And if I don't have a journal?
You are walking into a courtroom with nothing but your memory from 5 years ago. You will be asked, how did you verify his identity? What ID did you see? Who else was in the room?
Wow.
If you have no contemporaneous record, you have no defense. The journal is not just a state mandate for fee tracking. It is the notary's ultimate, sometimes only, protection against civil ruin.
And the liability is no joke. We've already talked about the Class C misdemeanor for acting out of state.
Mm-hmm.
But the sources outline several other ways a notary can end up in criminal trouble.
Yes. Under Section 816.120, it is a Class C misdemeanor to perform any official act before you have filed your $10,000 bond.
Jump the gun, go to jail.
It is also a Class C misdemeanor to act after your commission expires.
Is there a grace period? Like, if my commission expired yesterday, but I have a closing scheduled today, can I just slide by?
There is absolutely no grace period. If your commission expired at midnight and you stamp a document at 8 in the morning the next day, you have committed a crime. You are impersonating a public official because you no longer hold the office.
But the criminal penalties, a $50 fine and maybe 30 days in jail, honestly seem mild compared to the financial liabilities.
The financial liabilities are where the true peril lies. Section 6622.113 dictates a statutory forfeiture penalty. If a notary fails to properly discharge their statutory duties regarding a registrable instrument like a real estate deed, they forfeit $100 directly to the county treasury.
$100. I mean, that's like a speeding ticket.
The $100 forfeiture is just a slap on the wrist. It's the administrative penalty. The real danger is in the second half of that statute.
Oh, boy.
It explicitly states that the notary remains fully liable in a civil action for all damages resulting from their misconduct or negligence, payable to any party injured by the defective notarization.
All damages. That implies unlimited civil liability.
It is unlimited. If your negligence, failing to properly verify an ID, or failing to administer an oath allows a fraudulent $500,000 mortgage to be filed against someone's property, you can be sued for the full $500,000.
And as we established earlier, the $10,000 bond will pay out its limit. But then the surety company will sue you to get their $10,000 back, leaving you on the hook for the remaining $490,000.
Precisely. You are financially ruined.
Which is exactly why the sources highly recommend something called errors and omissions insurance, E&O insurance.
Yes. While a surety bond protects the public from you, an errors and omissions insurance policy actually protects you. It covers your legal defense fees and pays out damages if you make an honest, unintentional mistake during a notarization. It is not legally required by the state, but operating without it is incredibly reckless.
And to avoid making those mistakes in the first place, you have to follow strict rules of impartiality. A notary is an impartial witness, which obviously means you cannot notarize your own signature.
Correct, you cannot be a witness to your own act. You also cannot notarize any transaction where you have a direct financial or beneficial interest.
What about family? Can I notarize a document for my wife?
Interestingly, Tennessee statutes do not explicitly write out a ban on notarizing for a spouse or a family member.
Oh, so it's legal.
Not quite. Just because it isn't explicitly banned in the text doesn't mean it's safe. The Tennessee Attorney General's office strongly discourages the practice.
It introduces bias.
Exactly. It creates an overwhelming presumption of bias. Think about community property and shared finances. If you notarize a loan document for your spouse that financially benefits your shared household, any lawyer challenging that document in court will easily argue that you had a beneficial interest in the transaction.
Right.
You were not an impartial witness. By notarizing for a spouse, you instantly jeopardize the legal validity of the entire transaction.
It's just not worth the risk.
It never is.
You also have to be incredibly careful about how you advertise your services, especially if you speak another language. The sources outline a very specific rule regarding non-English advertising.
This is a critical consumer protection rule under Section 8 Tax 16401. Non-attorney notaries who advertise their services in any language other than English must conspicuously include a disclaimer.
What does the disclaimer have to say?
It must clearly state, I am not an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Tennessee, and I may not give legal advice or accept fees for legal advice.
Why target foreign language advertising specifically?
It is specifically designed to combat what is known as notario publico fraud in immigrant communities.
How does that work?
In many Latin American and European countries, a notario is a highly trained, elite legal professional. They are akin to an attorney or even a judge. They draft contracts, provide legal counsel, and handle complex civil law matters.
But in the U.S., a notary public is just an impartial witness who took a background check and paid $12.
Right. So if a newly arrived immigrant sees a sign in a window that says Notario Publico, they naturally assume the person inside is a qualified lawyer who can help them with their immigration paperwork or legal defense.
That makes sense.
Unscrupulous individuals were using that linguistic misunderstanding to charge exorbitant fees for illegal, often disastrous legal advice.
So the state forces them to explicitly declare, I am just a witness, I am not a lawyer.
Exactly. Your core function is verifying identity and witnessing signatures. Nothing more.
And verifying that identity is its own incredibly strict process. We talked about the digital KBA quiz for online notaries, but for traditional in-person notarizations, you can't just take someone's word for who they are.
No, absolutely not. Unless you personally know the individual, meaning you have a long-standing personal relationship with them outside of a business transaction, you must require satisfactory evidence of identity.
And the sources detail exactly what counts as satisfactory evidence in Tennessee. It's a very specific list.
It is. The primary form is a current Tennessee driver's license or one that was issued within the past 5 years. You can also accept a U.S. passport, a military ID, or an identification card issued by any branch of the armed forces.
What about foreign nationals? What if someone hands me a passport from France or Brazil?
A foreign passport is acceptable, but with a massive critical caveat that catches many notaries off guard.
What's the caveat?
A foreign passport must be stamped by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS.
Wait, really?
Yes. A simple foreign passport by itself is not sufficient satisfactory evidence under the statute. It must contain the official USCIS stamp proving lawful entry and status.
Wow.
If it doesn't have the stamp, the notary must reject it and ask for an alternative state-approved form of ID.
Man, every single detail matters. The ink color, the venue, the specific stamp on a foreign passport, the expiration date, the $7 relocation fee. It is a massive, intricate web of regulations for an office that most people take completely for granted.
But that web of regulations is the invisible scaffolding holding up our entire economy and legal system.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We started this conversation talking about how easy it is to dismiss the notary as just a bored person with a rubber stamp at the bank.
Right.
But over the last hour, we've journeyed through localized county elections, $10,000 bonds that protect the public from fraud, the obsessive geometry of circular physical seals, and the brilliant analog genius of banning black and yellow ink.
We really covered a lot.
We've seen the traps of county venues, all the way to the digital frontier of PKI cryptography, 5-year video retention rules, and the power to literally solemnize marriages.
It is a remarkable ongoing evolution of a public office.
It really is. The next time you sit down to sign a mortgage or a sworn affidavit or a power of attorney for a loved one, and the notary pulls out that stamp, I hope you look at that dark blue ink with a completely new level of respect.
I hope so too.
You aren't just watching mundane bureaucracy happen. You are participating in a highly regulated, centuries-old matrix of laws designed specifically to protect your identity and your property.
I think that is the perfect way to view it. And I'll leave you and everyone listening with one final thought to mull over.
Lay it on me.
In our modern era, especially in the tech and finance worlds, we are absolutely obsessed with creating trustless systems. We hear constant buzzwords about blockchains, smart contracts, and decentralized ledgers.
Right. Technology is specifically designed to eliminate the need for human beings to trust one another. We want the math to do the trusting for us.
Exactly. We want cold, hard code. But looking at the evolution of the Tennessee notary proves something profoundly different.
What's that?
We've traced this office from an official pressing a metal seal into hot wax to verify a paper deed, all the way to a modern digital officer verifying identity via dynamic web video, KBA quizzes, and issuing X.509 cryptographic keys.
The tools changed, but the job didn't.
Precisely. It proves a fundamental reality about human society. At the end of the day, no matter how advanced our technology gets, no matter how unbreakable our cryptography becomes, the human element of the impartial witness remains the ultimate anchor connecting physical reality to legal truth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Math can secure a PDF document, but a blockchain cannot look you in the eye. A smart contract cannot observe if your hands are shaking because someone is coercing you. Only a human being can ask if you understand what you're signing, and swear an oath to the state that you are acting of your own free will.
The human firewall.
The human firewall.
I love that. Well, that wraps up our exploration of the volunteer state statutes. If you have questions about anything we discussed today, please email your questions to derek@dereksproul.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows.
Send them in. We love hearing from you.
Big thanks to our team. Executive producer Derek Spruill, lead writer Marylyn Lee Trotter, graphics by Eddie Montes Travis, music by Thomas Bynum, and produced by Magnificent Works Business Solutions. Don't just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge. This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Are you an aspiring notary looking to join millions of other notaries? Start your journey with the Notary Public Foundation by Derek Spruill. This essential guide provides the step-by-step process to becoming commissioned in your state. Don't stumble into the role. Walk into it with confidence. Grab your copy of the Notary Public Foundation by Derek Spruill on Amazon today.